roses. Not much of a show of roses.
Not bad.
Onions. Hardly a bumper crop, would you say?
I suppose not.
Earwigs of the dahlias. Do you remember when you were a boy? Do you remember our great slaughter of earwigs?
I remember.
Do you see the dahlias?
Yes.
Oh, describe them for me. Paint me the picture.
Well, they're red, and yellow, and blousy.
Oh, blousy?
Yes, they look sort of middle-aged. Overripe.
Earwig traps in place, are they?
Yes, they're in place.
When you were a boy, we often bagged 100 earwigs in a single foray. Do you remember?
I remember. My father wasn't always blind. The three of us lived in a small house, surrounded, as if for protection, by an enormous garden.
Where's the boy got to?
Disappeared, apparently.
Oh, he's running wild.
He was driven to the station, where he caught a train to London and the law courts, to his work as a barrister, in a great hearse-like motor, which he would no more have thought of replacing every year than he would have accepted a different kind of suit or new gardening hat. As soon as possible he returned to the safety of the dahlias and the ritual of the evening earwig hunt. Visitors were rare, and if spotted, my father would move deeper into the foliage until the danger had passed. Those were the days when my father could see. Before I was sent away to school.
I told you, he's running wild again.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yes, of course he is. It's a good thing, too. When I was a boy in Africa, they sent me off, all by myself, to a small hotel up country to run wild for 3 months. Yeah, I took my birthday cake with me. Kept it under the bed. I well remember when my birthday came round, I took out the cake, sat on the bed, and ate it. That was my solitary celebration.
He'll soon be going away to school.
Sorry, what did you say?
He'll be going away to school. We can't expect him to stay here forever.
One day he bought a stepladder for pruning the apple trees.
She was as beautiful as a butterfly, and as proud as a queen, was pretty little Polly Perkins of Barrington Green. I'm a broken-hearted milkman, in grief I'm arrayed, through the keeping of the company of the young servant maid.
He hit his head on the branch of a tree, and the retinas left the balls of his eyes. My father was blind, but we never mentioned it. He had a great disinclination to mention anything unpleasant. What was that? Courage? Cowardice? Indifference? Or caring too completely? Why didn't he blaspheme? Beat his head against the pitch-black sitting-room walls? Why didn't he curse God? Well, he had a great capacity for rage, but never at the universe.
This egg's bloody runny. It's in a nauseating condition. What do you want to do? Choke me to death? Can we take it away? And the plate's stone cold. Have you all gone mad? Am I totally surrounded by cretins? In 6 months she married that hard-hearted girl, but it wasn't to a viscount and it wasn't to an earl. It wasn't to a baronet, but a shade or two worse. 'Twas to the Bow-Lake conductor of a twopenny bus.
Marmalade?
Thank you. The evolution of the horse was certainly a most tortuous process. None of your 6-day nonsense. 6 days' labour wouldn't evolve one primitive earthworm. Is the boy still here?
Please, dear, don't be tactless.
Well, I thought he'd gone away to school.
Pas devant le garçon.
What?
He doesn't like it mentioned.
Well, either he's going away or he's not. I'm entitled to know. If he's here this evening, he can help me out with the earwigs.
Oh, Mr. Lean is going to drive him at 3:30.
Oh, 3:30, eh?
Yes, dear.
You'll learn how to construct an equilateral triangle. Totally useless information.
We really ought not to discourage the boy. You'll find the French very useful.
What on earth for?
Well, going to France.
What does he want to go to France for? There's plenty to do in the garden. Oh, this coffee's frozen. It's like Arctic mud.
Shall I make you some fresh?
No, I like it.
The school is very modern. It seems that some of the older boys do sketching at weekends from nature. I used to bicycle out with my sketch pad from the College of Art. I enjoyed it so much.
All education's perfectly useless, but it fills in the time. I mean, the boy can't sit around here all day till he gets old enough for marriage. Can't sit around doing the crossword.
Married. There's plenty of time to think of that when he's learnt to keep his bedroom tidy. Well, the headmaster seemed rather charming.
No one ever got a word of sense out of a schoolmaster. If they knew anything, they'd be out there doing it. That'll be your misfortune for the next 10 years, to be constantly rubbing up against second-rate minds.
At the start of each term, apparently, all the new boys are given a little speech of welcome.
Yes, ignore it. Particularly if they offer you any advice on the subject of life. At a pinch, you may take their word for equilateral hexagons, but remember, life is a closed book to schoolmasters.
Come along. We'll label your trunk this afternoon.
Well, you won't expect any advice from me, I hope. All advice is perfectly useless.
I've still got to mark your hockey stick.
You're alone in the world, remember? And no one can tell you what to do about it. What's the matter with the boy?
He's not crying.
Say the word rats. No one can cry when they're saying the word rats. It's to do with the muscles of the face.
Rats. 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 Rats.
I was to be prepared for life, complete with football boots, gym shoes, house shoes, shirts grey, shirts white, bulldog Drummond, mint humbugs, sponge bags, boxing gloves, and my seating plans for all the London theatres. My father had warned me, but this was far worse than I had expected.
Now, new boys, stand up now. Let me look at you. Someday, some long, distant day, you will be 1 yearers, and then 2 years, and then 3 years. You will go away and you will write letters, and I shall try hard to remember you. Then you'll be old boys, old cliffhangers. OCs you shall become, and the fruit of your loins shall attend the school by the water. Leave the room, the boy who laughed. The fruit of your loins shall return and stand here, even as you stand here, and we shall teach them. We shall give them sound advice, so that hungry generations of boys shall learn not to eat peas with their knives, or butter their hair, or clean their fingernails with bus tickets. You shall be taught to wash, to bowl straight, and to wipe your dirty noses. When you're in the 6th form, you shall see something of golf. You will look on the staff as your friends. At all times, you will call us by nicknames. I am Noah. My wife is Mrs. Noah. You are the animals. My son Lance is Shem. Mr. Pierce and Mr. Box are Ham and Japhet. Matron is Matron, and Mr. Bingo Ollard is Mr. Bingo Ollard. These mysteries have I expounded to you. Oh, litter of runts.
The masters who taught us still suffered from shell shock and battle fatigue. Some had shrapnel lodged in their bodies, and the classroom would turn only too easily into another Passchendaele.
Now, the square on the longest side of a right-angle bloody triangle is what, boy?
I don't know.
Struff, you boy! Bomb and howitzer and struff the living daylights out of you. God bomb you to hell. Oh. Get your tin hat on. It's coming over now. It is equal to the square. What square, you unfortunate griffin? It's a square on the other two sides. Right-angle bloody triangle. Struff, you boys. Shell and howitzer, you got. Bomb you to hell! All right, war's over. Armistice Day, demob. I suppose you want compensation.
If you like, sir.
How many books did I throw?
6, sir, not counting the duster.
Threepence a book and say, penny the duster, is that fair?
I'd say so, sir.
Oh, jolly good. Is that 1 and 6?
I think it's 1 and 7pence, sir.
From Ham I learnt the healing power of money.
I'm writing to you from outside the President's Court at the start of a divorce case. Like all divorce cases, this one is concerned with sex, which you will find to be a subject filled with comic relief. Pearson Dupre, K.C., who was a Ginme in this case, is hardly a foeman worthy of my steel. No doubt he'll fumble his cross-examination. He may even fail to prove my client's adultery, although God knows the man's had inclination and opportunity to spare. Like you, I shall today be rubbing up against a second-rate mind. At home, we've been pricking out Korean chrysanthemums and making marmalade. Unusually large plague of earwigs this summer. Ever your loving father.
Do you get many letters from home?
Hello, Reigate. Once a week, I expect.
Keep the envelopes.
For the stamps?
To put the fish in on Sunday nights. The fish is disgusting. Put it in envelopes and post it down the bogs.
Why in envelopes?
Well, you can't just put bits of fish straight into your pocket. Is your mother slim?
Fairly slim.
Is your father good at golf?
Pretty good.
My mother's slim as a bluebell.
Well, mine's quite slim too, really. She goes to cocktail parties.
As slim as a bluebell with yellow eyes.
Yellow?
Like a panther.
Oh, I see.
Very small feet. High heels, of course. Does your mother wear high heels?
Whenever she goes to cocktail parties, she wears them then.
My mother wears high heels, even at breakfast. Of course, she's slim as a bluebell.
But Armistice Day brought embarrassing revelations. We were able to see those from whose loins, as Noah would say, we had actually sprung.
Let us pray. O Lord, inasmuch as we are paraded now on Lower School Field, on this the Armistice Day, November the 11th, 1936, help us to remember those OCs who fell upon alien soil in the late, great match. Grant us their spirit, we beseech thee, that we may go over the top to our common entrance and our football fixtures, armed with the cold steel of thy holy word. Give us, if thy will be done, the great opportunity to shed our bloods for our country and our beloved school, and fill us with that feeling of sportsmanship which led our fathers to fix bayonets and play until the last whistle blew. Amen. Amen. We will sing the concluding hymn on your hymn sheets. God of our fathers, known of old. God of our fathers, known of out, Lord above, flung battle line, pretty little Polly Pearls, all heavy hung, I'm over harm and pine, in glory's fire rage, through the keeping of the company, of the young servant maid. Amen. Parents are invited to join the staff in Lower School Hall for light refreshments. Oh dear. How do you do, Mrs.
Reigate.
Mrs. Reigate? How very nice to see you again.
It was a wonderful service, Headmaster.
She didn't look much like a panther.
Who?
And your mother wasn't exactly a bluebell either.
My mother? You've never seen my mother?
Noah called her Mrs. Reigate. I heard him distinctly.
Noah only knows what's good for him to know. That was no more my mother than you are.
Who was she then?
Just a dear good old soul who promised to look after me.
When?
When they smuggled me out of Russia, after the revolution. They smuggled me out in a wickerwork trunk. I was 10 days and nights on the rack in the carriage of the Siberian Railway. Then we got to Paris. They tried to shoot us in Paris, me and my brother. But we got away, across the frozen river, and escaped to England. Swear you won't tell anyone.
All right.
By the blood of my father.
If you like. I've just heard from my parents, actually. Something pretty sensational.
Oh, yes?
I think they're probably getting divorced.
Honestly?
Honestly.
Why, are they unfaithful?
Oh, always. And I told you, my mother goes to cocktail parties.
You'll be having a broken home, then.
Oh, yes. I expect I will.
But when I got home, nothing had changed. My home remained imperturbably intact.
You start, then.
Bill?
Who is it?
It's me, Bill. It's Harry. Harry.
Where do you want us to sit?
In the stalls.
Oh, we're in the posh seats. Now, what's going on?
Comes next.
There's going to be a little surprise.
I can't see you, old fellow.
Who's the boy talking
See you,
to?
old
To
fellow.
Reigate, his friend.
The boy has a
Won't learn your
friend.
lines.
Oh, welcome, Reigate. Now, what's Reigate like, eh? Paint me the picture.
Well, he's quite small.
And he's really Russian.
You're Russian, eh? Oh, well, that's something of an achievement. Do you know, when I was at school, I didn't mind the lessons. I just resented having to work so terribly hard at playing. Yes, they don't roast you at school nowadays, do they? I can't think what I'm paying all that money for if they don't roast them from time to time.
Do you like school, Reigate?
It's all right. The headmaster makes us call him Noah.
And his son is Shem.
And we have to call Mr. Box and Mr. Pierce Ham and Japhet. And we're the animals.
And Mr. Bingo Ollard is Mr. Bingo Ollard.
Didn't I warn you? Second-rate minds.
Now we're going to do something to keep you from thinking of your great unhappiness.
Oh, what?
Our unhappiness?
What did he say?
They're going to put on an entertainment.
Oh, good. I like an entertainment. When's it to be?
Now,
We're going to do a play.
Ah, what is it? Something out of the boy's own.
I wrote it.
You what?
I'm sure Reigate helped, didn't you, Reigate?
He didn't help.
What are you supposed to be? Two little clowns?
Actually, we're two subalterns. Killed on the Somme, actually.
Oh, they'll soon be giving us war again. Now, when it comes, avoid the temptation to do anything heroic. All right, what's going on now? Come on, make it vivid.
They're putting out some of your barbed wire.
My what?
Your barbed wire?
Oh, put it back again, won't you? We don't want the cows everywhere.
Oh, Reigate's wearing your greatcoat and the boy is wearing your old Sam Brown.
How killing.
Lights out, curtain up. Bill.
Who is it?
It's me, Bill. It's Harry.
Harry, I can't see you, old fellow. It's this damn gas everywhere. Take my hand.
Where are you?
Out here, by the wire. Listen.
What?
They've stopped strafing. I say, if we ever get back to the old country,
What?
I want you to marry Helen.
You said you'd never let Helen marry a chap who'd funked the top diving board at Roehampton.
Never mind what I said, Harry. I saw you today on the North Redoubt. You were in there, batting for England. You shall have my little sister boy, my hand on it.
I can't feel your hand, Bill.
I can't see you, Harry.
I'm cold.
I'm afraid we'll never see England again.
What's the matter with us, Bill?
We're dead, old fellow. Can't you understand? We're both of us dead.
Dead? How killing!
That was splendid. Now come along, we must clear away this barbed wire. Mind your hands.
Dead? Yeah, you know, I didn't want to be dead. I never wanted that. When your mother and I got married in Saffron Walden, they were just about to pack me off to France. Bands, troop ships, flowers thrown at you, and dead in a fortnight. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And then, the day before I was due to sail, my old major drew me aside. He said, "You've just got married, old fellow. No particular sense in being dead. They've found me a post in the inland waterways. And that's my advice to you. If they ever look like giving us war again, get yourself a job in the inland waterways."
Your parents seem to be getting on quite well.
They pretend. For me.
And your mother didn't seem to drink very much either.
Not till the evenings.
You know, I'll tell you something about your father.
What?
He can't see. He's blind, isn't he?
It was a question our family never asked. Naturally, I didn't answer it.
You are the leavers. In a month or two, you will go on to great public schools, away from this warm, cosy little establishment. Now, before I forget, Mrs. Noah and I will be pleased to see you all to tea on Sunday. A trifling matter of anchovy paste sandwiches. You hear that, eh, Raggett? All boys to come with clean fingernails. No boy to put butter on his hair.
Please, sir.
Yes, Raggett.
Why aren't we to put butter on our hair?
Good question. I'm glad you asked me that. We had that trouble with the native regiments. Used to lick their hair down with butter. It went rancid in the hot weather. Unpleasant odour on parade. There's no law against a drop of water on the comb. Now, what was I going to tell you? Ah, yes. I was warning you about dreams. You'll have them, oh certainly, you'll have them. And in the morning you may say to yourselves, "You rotter to have a dream like that." Well, you can't help it, that's all. You simply can't help them. Not dreams. Of course, if you're awake, you can do something about it. You can change into a pair of shorts and go for a run across country. Or you can get into a bath and turn on the cold tap. You can quite easily do that. Your housemaster will understand. Now, to the most serious problem you're likely to run up against. Friends. You may find that a boy from another class, or a house even, comes up to you and says, "Let's be friends." Or even offers you a slice of cake. Now that's a simple one, a perfectly simple one to deal with. You just say, very loudly, "I'm going straight to tell the housemaster." No hesitation about it. Remember, the only real drawback to our great public school system is unsolicited cake. Have you got that very clear? Go straight and tell the housemaster.
Do you have dreams?
Not very much.
I once dreamt about fish.
What?
All that fish. You know the fish we have on Sunday nights, that we put down the bogs? I dreamt it came swimming back at us. I dreamt it all swam back in shoals and invaded the school.
Did you feel bad? About dreaming that, I mean.
I suppose so.
That must have been what he meant.
It wasn't until later that I realized that the headmaster had been trying to advise us on a subject which my father often used to bring up, unexpectedly, in the middle of tea.
Sex. It's been greatly overrated by the poets. I never had many mistresses with thighs like white marble.
Would you like your biscuit now, dear?
Now, what did he mean? Did he mean that he'd had many mistresses, without especially marmoreal thighs, or few mistresses of any sort?
Change in a trice the lilies and languors of virtue for the raptures and roses of vice. Where's my bloody biscuit?
I put it in your saucer.
From their lips have thy lips taken fever? Is the breath of them hot in thy hair?
What did he know about the sharp uncertainties of love?
Is the breath of them hot in thy hair? How perfectly disgusting that sounds. Sex is pretty uphill work, if you want my opinion.
I don't agree.
You don't agree?
I don't happen to agree.
Who is that?
The boy.
I don't think sex has been overrated exactly.
Well, I'll tell you a story. A lover, a wife, and an angry husband.
Not that one, dear.
Why ever not?
It's not very suitable. Do you take sugar? I can never remember.
No thanks.
The husband returns and discovers all. He summons the lover into the dining room. The wife waits, trembling, terrified, for the sounds of fighting, the smashing of crockery. Silence. She tiptoes down the stairs. There's the husband and the lover side by side at the dining table, perfectly contented, drinking light ale. Suddenly she bursts out at both of them. You ungrateful brutes! They both listen as the door slams behind her. Then they open another bottle of light ale.
Did that really happen?
What?
Did that ever really happen?
It's the ridiculous inconvenience of sex. That's what they never write about.
We've got some new neighbours.
New neighbours? We better plant some more poplars. Who are they?
Miss Baker and Miss Cox.
Two ladies who run the new bookshop by the station. Apparently he went in to buy a book and they found him simpatico.
He hasn't invited them back here, has he? He hasn't encouraged them to drop in for a glass of sherry, because if he has, I shall lie doggo. I shall go to earth in the West Copse, I promise you.
He didn't say he was bringing them here.
Yeah, well, if he does, I shall disappear without trace. Doesn't he know we dread visitors? Oh, well, poor boy. He'll miss the evening foray after earwigs. Now, what exactly did he say?
He didn't say anything.
Well, I shall be at the far end of the border doing some rigorous deadheading.
Miss Baker and Miss Cox. One was as soft and feathery as Carol Lombard. In the other, I found Joan Crawford's merciless sensuality. They both smelt of imperial leather soap, and talked of distant days in the south of France. I used to spend afternoons deciding which I would first seduce.
I could have kissed you when you first came into our shop.
Could you really?
And actually bought a book.
Most people come in for pamphlets. 100 Things to Do with Dried Egg, published by the Ministry of Food. Is your family out?
I'm afraid so. Would you like another drink?
Please.
Any chance of a Pernod? Bill and I got used to Pernod in Cassis.
Who's Bill?
I'm Bill. She's Daphne.
I'm afraid we're out of Pernod.
Another sherry would be lovely. Did you say your family were out?
I'm afraid so. Cocktail parties.
We've never actually met your father.
No, we looked over the gate one evening and shouted. He was busy doing something with a bucket.
Probably the earwigs.
What?
He drowns earwigs every night. It's quite a small house, really, isn't it? You know, when you consider the size of the garden. Oh, I adore Charles Trenet, don't you?
Bill and I once danced with Charles Trenet in Cassis.
Bloody war! I've been called up.
Bill's been called up. They're putting her on the lam.
I'll probably ruin the crops.
It's the war, Bill. We all have to make sacrifices. Bill doesn't care much for this war. We were more keen on the war in Spain.
They've got me down for a pig farm near God-alming.
All our friends were awfully keen on the war in Spain. Stephen Spender and all that jolly lot.
Oh, I adore Stephen Spender.
Oh, I expect you'll go into the fire service.
Why?
All our friends go into the fire service.
They get a lot of time for writing, waiting about between fires. Oh,
We forgot the bucket for the drowning.
Have you totally abandoned me?
I'm coming, darling.
well, I expect you'd like us to,
Please. My father always says that in time of war one should avoid the temptation to do anything heroic.
One day we'd like to meet him.
You managed to get rid of them.
The fire service. That's where you'll end up. It gives everyone far more time to write.
Is that what you're going to be then? A writer?
Isn't there an easier way of getting rid of earwigs?
Oh, sometimes I think women don't understand anything. Easier way.
Did you enjoy your visitors, dear?
Oh, is that you?
Yes, it's me.
Oh. Consider the persistence of the earwig. Each afternoon it feasts upon our dahlia blooms. Each evening it creeps into our flower pots to sleep. We empty the flower pots and drown the earwigs. Yet the cries still they come. Nature is remorseless.
I'm thinking of becoming a writer.
And if we did this for 1 million years, all over the world, do you think we might make some small dent in the pattern of evolution? I mean, do you think we might produce an earwig that could swim? You'll be far better off in the law.
I'd like to write.
Well, you'll have plenty of spare time. My first 5 years in Chambers, I did nothing but the Times crossword. Besides, if you were only a writer, who would you rub shoulders with? Other writers? Now, you'll be far better off in the law.
Well, I don't know that
No brilliance is needed in the law. Nothing but common sense and relatively clean fingernails. Yeah, and another thing, if you were a writer and married, think about your poor unfortunate wife.
What?
Well, she'd have you at home all day, in carpet slippers, drinking tea and stumped for words. You'll be far better off down the tube each morning, off to the law courts. Hey, how many have we bagged today?
About 100.
Moderate bag, I'd say. Merely moderate. Do you know, the law of husband and wife may seem idiotic at first sight, but when you get to know it, you'll find it can exercise a vague, medieval charm. Learn a little law, won't you? Just to please me.
That was my father's way to offer the law to me, the great stone column of authority which has been dragged by an adulterous, careless, negligent, and half-criminal humanity down the ages, as if it were a small mechanical toy that might occupy half an hour on a rainy afternoon. He and my mother travelled up to Paddington Station and the law courts almost every day of the legal year. He never used a white stick, but his clouded malacca was heard daily, tapping the stone corridors of the law courts. He had no use for therapy, dogs, nor training, nor did he adapt himself to his condition in any way. He simply pretended that nothing had happened.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Who's that?
Mr. Bousted, dear. He's for the husband.
Ah, agin me, Bulstrode, are you? Agin me?
Bousted?
Oh, yeah, excuse me, yes, Mr. Bousted, yes, of course. Where are you?
Here. I'm here.
Yeah, now, I've studied your case pretty closely, and I've got a suggestion to make which you might find helpful.
Really?
Yes. Now, what I'm suggesting, entirely for your assistance, of course, is that you might like, my dear boy, to throw in your hand. Now, is that a help to you?
Certainly not. I'd say that we have some pretty valuable evidence.
Ah.
Now, from the vantage point which you have already described, Mr. Thong, will you tell my lord and the jury exactly what you saw?
Throat spray.
Yes, Mr. Thong, in your own words.
Thank you.
From my point of vantage, I was quite clearly able to see inside the kitchen window.
Yes?
And...
Speak up, Mr. Thong, I can't hear.
My lord, I could quite clearly distinguish the respondent.
Yes?
In the act of becoming...
In the act of what, Mr. Thong?
In the act of becoming...
If my learned friend would allow us to hear the evidence...
Oh, I'm so sorry, my dear fellow. If this is the valuable evidence you told me of, I shall be quiet as the tomb.
Mr. Thong.
Yeah, by all means, my lord, let us hear this valuable evidence.
Very well.
I distinctly saw them...
Oh, my God, how can I apologize?
Distinctly saw them what?
Kissing and cuddling, my lord.
And then?
The light was extinguished.
Where?
In the kitchen.
And a further light appeared?
In the bedroom.
For a moment?
Merely momentarily, my lord.
So?
So, the house was shrouded in darkness. And the correspondent, and this is the point that struck us, had not emerged.
And you kept up observation until...
approximately dawn.
Thank you, Mr. Thong.
Mr. Thong, what price did you put on this valuable evidence?
I don't know what you mean.
You have been paid, haven't you, to give it?
I'm a private inquiry agent.
A professional witness.
Charging the usual fee.
Oh, 30 pieces of silver?
My lord, I object. This is outrageous.
Perhaps that was not entirely relevant.
Then let me ask you something which is very relevant, which goes straight to the secret heart of this wretched conspiracy. Where was the lady's husband during your observations?
Captain Waring.
Captain Waring, yes.
He had accompanied me.
Why?
For the purpose
For the purpose of what?
identification.
And how long did he remain with you?
As long as observation continued.
Till dawn?
Until approximately 5:30 a.m.
And did he not storm the house? Did he not beat upon the door? Did he not seize his wife's paramour by the throat and hurl him into the gutter?
According to my notebook, no.
And according to your notebook, was he enjoying himself?
Oh, really?
Please, Mr. Bulstrode, I have sat here for 3 days like patience on a monument, whilst a series of spiteful, mean, petty, trumped-up, sickening and small-minded charges are tediously paraded against the unfortunate woman I represent. And now, when I rise to cross-examine, I will not be interrupted!
Gentlemen! Gentlemen, please! What was your question?
I've forgotten it. My learned friend's interruption has had the effect he no doubt intended, and I've forgotten my question.
This is intolerable.
Now I've remembered it again. Did he enjoy the night, Thong, in this field, from which he was magically able to overlook his own kitchen?
This plot of waste ground.
Up a tree, was he?
What?
Was he perched upon a tree?
We had stepped up into the lower branches.
And was it the naked eye?
Pardon?
Was he viewing this distressing scene by aid of the naked eye?
Captain Waring had brought a pair of field glasses.
Yes, his racing glasses.
Speak up, Mr. Thong.
I should imagine he used them for racing, my lord.
Yes, you see, Captain Waring has already given evidence in this court.
Oh, on the subject of racing glasses?
No, Mr. Bulstrode, on the subject of love. He has told us that he was deeply, sincerely in love with his wife.
I don't know anything about that.
Exactly, Mr. Thong. You are hardly an expert witness, are you, on the subject of love? May it please you, my lord, members of the jury, in the course of history, love has driven men and women to curious extremes. It tempted Leander to plunge in and swim the raging Hellespont. It led Juliet to feign death and Ophelia to madness. No doubt it complicated the serenity of the Garden of Eden, and, we are told, started the Trojan War. But surely there can be no more curious example of the mysterious effects of the Passion than the spectacle of Captain Waring, of the Royal Engineers, roosted in a tree, complacently viewing the seduction of his beloved through a pair of strong, racing binoculars. Is not the whole story, members of the jury, an improbable and impertinent tissue of falsehood?
He sent words out into the darkness, like soldiers sent off to battle, and was never short of reinforcements. In the law courts he gave his public performance. At home he returned to the ritual of the potting shed, the crossword puzzle, and, when I was at home, the afternoon walk.
I've had a good deal of fun out of the law.
Have you ever been to the south of France?
Yes, once or twice. It's not bad, except for the dreadful greasy food they can't stop talking about.
Bill and Daphne say that the worst of the war is that they can't get to the south of France.
Who are they?
The ladies from the bookshop.
The ones who downed all our sherry.
That's right.
My heart bled for you on that occasion.
Daphne's Miss Cox.
Well, who's Bill?
Bill's Miss Baker.
Oh, damn rum.
They practically lived in Cannes before the war. They met Cocteau.
Who?
He smoked opium.
Oh.
Have you ever smoked opium?
Certainly not. Gives you constipation. Dreadful binding effect. Have you ever seen those pictures of the wretched poet Coleridge?
Uh-huh.
Green around the gills and a stranger to the lavatory. Avoid opium.
They may find me a war job.
Who may?
Miss Baker and Miss Cox.
Oh, is old Bill on the general staff, then?
They have a friend who makes propaganda films for the government. He needs an assistant.
You're thinking of entering the film world?
Just for the duration.
Oh, well, at least there's nothing heroic about it.
No.
It's a rum sort of world, isn't it, the film world?
I expect so.
Don't they wear their caps back to front in the film world?
You're thinking of these silent days.
Am I? Oh, yes, I expect I am. Do you know, your mother and I went to see a silent film once in Glastonbury.
Did you?
Yes, we were staying there in this hotel. It was, damn dull, nothing to do in the evenings, so we sallied forth to see this silent film. The point was, you see, that I invariably dressed for dinner when in Glastonbury. You follow?
I follow.
And when your mother and I entered this picture palace in evening dress, the audience burst into spontaneous applause. I believe they thought we were part of the entertainment. Oh, it's a rum world, I must say. Hey, where are we?
At the bottom of Stoner Hill.
Stoner? Oh, good. Right, I'll just rest for a moment, then we'll go on up to the top.
Will we?
Of course we will. You can see 3 counties from the top of Stoner Hill. Don't you want to see 3 counties?
All right.
See everything. Everything in nature. That's the instinct of the May beetle. 24 hours to live. So, spend it looking around.
We've got more time.
Don't you believe it? Oh, it's short, but enjoyable. You know what?
What?
If they ever say to you, your poor old father, he couldn't have enjoyed life very much. Overdrawn at the bank, bad-tempered. People didn't visit him very often. Nonsense, you can say. He enjoyed every minute of it. When you consider the embryo of the liver fluke, born in sheep's droppings, scouring the world for a shell to bore into for the sake of living in a snail until it becomes tadpole-like and leaves its host only to be swallowed up by a sheep again. When you consider that complicated persistence, well then, of course I've clung on for 65 years. It's the instinct, that's all. The irresistible instinct. All right, then. Come on, up we go. Here, now watch carefully, and you'll see 3 counties.
Take it out!
Yeah, all right, don't
Doris, I'm on my way.
And a bit more. That's it.
Salome. That's Marshall
Salome.
Standing there with her arms all
Can we have a little quiet here,
A
please?
little wrinkle makes the boys all stare.
Great Scott, Sparks!
Sorry, Doris.
You the new assistant?
Yes.
Know your job, do you?
Well, I'm new to movies.
Oh, great Scott. You don't have to know anything about movies. You're here to fetch the subsistence.
The what?
Well, tea breaks, coffee breaks, after lunch special breaks, and in lieu of breakfast breaks. Right, the Sparks have tea and ham and lettuce rolls, known to them as Smith's sandwiches. The Chippies take coffee and cakes with coconut icing. The director has Horlicks, liver pate sandwiches and Will's whiffs. You keep your mouth shut, except to call in a firm and authoritative tone for quiet when we shoot. Any questions?
Yes.
What?
Where do I get liver pate sandwiches?
Use your bloody imagination. Now that's what you came into the film business for.
Doris!
Coming, Humphrey! The next tea break's in 10 minutes.
Oi, you lost something?
Oh, well, actually...
Oh, don't worry. Maybe you left it in the officer's mess. Here. You know we got 2 ATS girls in the next scene, don't you?
No, I didn't.
There's 2 sorts of hats, let me tell you. Cocked hats and felt hats. You had it in last night, did you?
I beg your pardon?
Seen the King last night?
The King? No. Was he here?
Was he here? That's a good one. Who'd you say you was out with?
Actually, no one.
Didn't spend out on her, I hope. Never spend out till you've had it in. Then you can buy her a packet of small smokes. What'd you say you was looking for?
A liver pate sandwich.
Liver pate? You're a caution. That's what you are.
Right, Doris, I'm going for a tea.
Assistant, get a bit of silence, will you?
Sorry, Doris.
No, quiet, for God's sake.
Quiet, please. Can we have a bit of quiet now, please? We'd appreciate a bit of quiet now, thank you. All quiet now. We're going to go for a take. Ladies and gentlemen, have a bit of quiet now. Quiet now, please.
Oh, shut up, you bastards!
All right. Everybody out.
No! Please! Is this the writers' department? They say I'm not cut out by nature to be an assistant director. When I yelled for quiet, all the electricians went on strike. They say with me as an assistant director, the war would be over before they finished the movie. What's the script?
It's something Humphrey wants to do. There's a character in it called the Common Man. He keeps on saying, "Look here, matey, what is the World Health Organisation?"
There, sounds ghastly.
Yes, it is rather.
Why on earth do you bother to write it?
I suppose the school fees.
Oh, are you studying something?
No, you fool, it's my kids. Peter's only got his captain's pay and I
Peter?
My husband.
He's, overseas.
Uxbridge. In army education.
My father always says that in time of war one should avoid the temptation to do anything heroic.
How odd.
What?
Odd thing for him to say.
You know, I think after today I'll abandon the film business and take up the law. My father's a lawyer.
Do you always copy your father?
Oh, good God, no.
Really? You look the type to agree with Dad.
Well, there's one thing he says which I don't agree with at all.
What's that?
He says that sex has been greatly overrated. By the poets.
Is he going to be any use to you, Elizabeth?
Who?
Our new writer?
Oh, I shouldn't think so. Is he going to stay?
What?
Just passing through. That's the feeling I get about him.
Oh, my tie. God in heaven, where's my tie? Can't anyone bring me a waistcoat even? Can't any of you realise the loneliness of getting dressed? Oh, it's you.
Yes, it's me.
Oh, I suppose you expect me to talk about it?
I know it must have come as a bit of a shock to you when Peter divorced Elizabeth.
Well, it must have come as a bit of a shock to you too, didn't it? The fact that she was available for marriage, that must have cooled your ardour somewhat. I mean, you're hardly in any state to get married.
Do you want to stop us?
Are you asking me to?
Of course not.
How long have you been at the bar, exactly?
9 months.
9 months. I'd been in practice for 10 years before I felt the slightest need to marry your mother.
Perhaps needs weren't so urgent then.
Oh, yeah, well, you've got any work to do.
A little work.
Yes, unsuccessful defence in serious case of non-renewed dog licence. That'll hardly keep you in Vim.
But we don't want to be kept in Vim.
You'll have no alternative once you're married. Your no income will be frittered away on Vim, saucepan scourers, mansion polish, children's vests, and such like luxuries.
No, I'm quite prepared to take on her children.
Well, you sound like a railway train. Short stop to take on children. Come on, waistcoat anywhere about.
Wait.
Yes, in the course of her life she has acquired children. Mixed blessings, I should imagine, for both of you.
Look, if you're worried about money...
I'm not worried about it. I just think you haven't bargained for the Vim. Now, how long are you going to deny me my waistcoat?
Oh, here. I know you think we're insane.
Oh, you feel the need to be dissuaded, don't you?
Of course not.
I can't help you, you know.
We don't want help.
From what I hear, the children seem quite lively, as children go.
Coat.
Of course, it won't be I who has to keep them in rompers. Now, I wonder, do you think I should have a little drop of eau de cologne on the handkerchief? I understand your poor girl is coming to tea today. We seem nowadays to be totally surrounded by visitors.
Now, you're not going to be rude to her?
No, certainly not. Your poor girl and I have got a certain understanding.
For God's sake, why do you keep calling her my poor girl?
Well, that's something I shall have to explain to her.
They're just coming.
Hello.
Hello. Now, it's going to be all right. You won't mind whatever he says.
Will you?
No, of course not.
Whatever he says?
Well, I'm used to it. He doesn't mean half of it.
Yes, I know. But it'll be difficult.
What?
Knowing which half he means.
There's rhododendrons out.
Oh, yes, dear.
Ah, a fine show of rhododendrons. Oh, and the little syringa.
Oh, just out.
Just out and smelling sweetly. Azalea's doing well.
Oh, well, we can see they're a little brown round the edges.
Oh, Azalea's doing moderately well. Is our visitor here?
Oh, yes, dear, Elizabeth's here.
We're both here.
Ah, and is your visitor enjoying the garden?
Very much, thank you.
Good. And is he treating you well?
Quite well, thank you.
You see, I've often wondered about my son. Does he treat girls well?
Why have you wondered that?
Well, you see, I once knew a man called Arthur Pennyquick. He was in some ways, and he didn't treat girls well.
Please, dear, Arthur Pennyquick is not quite suitable.
Oh, tell us, what did he do to girls?
Well, when I was a young man, I was out with this Pennyquick, and he picked up a girl in the promenade of the old Alhambra Music Hall. And just before he went off with her, he took out his cufflinks and handed them to me for safekeeping in her presence. I was so sick and angry seeing him take out his old gold cufflinks. I never spoke to him again. Disgusting.
You think if you sleep with someone you should trust them with your cufflinks?
Well, at least don't take them out in front of the girl. Well, we can see a fine show of rhododendrons.
Yes, dear, and I showed you the polyanthus.
Yes, a reward at last for a good deal of tedious potting up.
Why do you bother?
What? About what?
I said, why do you bother to do all this gardening? I mean, when you can't see it.
Elizabeth.
Well, he can't, can he? Why do you all walk about pretending he's not blind?
Is this you?
Yes.
Would you take me to the West Copse? I want to report on the magnolia. Would you do that? Be my eyes?
Come then.
She's got nice eyes.
Yes.
Not at all the eyes of a divorced person.
Does he want to stop us?
Well, it's not easy for him. He's such a household word in the probate, divorce and admiralty division.
Is he going on about that?
No, not at all.
If he could only see her, he'd understand why I want to marry her.
Oh, he understands that. I think his main difficulty is understanding why she wants to marry you.
That's nice of him.
Oh, would you come and help me cut up oranges? I do so hate making marmalade.
Oh, for God's sake! Why don't you buy it?
Come over, did you, in your own small car?
You've been trying to put him off.
No, not at all.
I told him you'd put him off.
Well, he came to me for advice.
And I suppose you gave it.
No, I never give advice. It's far too precious. It's a bit of an asset, don't you find it? That private transport.
We've made up our mind.
Yes, and I believe your children are quite lively. I'm 4 children.
He gets on marvellously with them.
And I believe you have your own bits and pieces of furniture. A bedroom suite, they tell me, in a fine state of preservation. You know, you're a bit of a catch, if you want my honest opinion.
Well, then, you ought to be glad for him.
What, for him? No. Now, look, joking apart, you don't want to marry him. He's got no assets of any kind, not even a kitchen cabinet. Yeah, and I'll tell you something else about it. He won't like it, you know, if you get the flu.
Really?
Most people are sympathetic towards illness. They're kind to people with high temperatures. They even cosset them, but not him. Sneeze once, he'll be off. In the opposite direction.
I don't get ill all that much.
Well, if you do, he'll run a mile.
I thought it was me you might disapprove of.
Oh, why ever?
Think he's marrying someone unsuitable.
You have particularly nice eyes, they tell me.
Thank you.
And your own bits and pieces of furniture.
Not much.
Yeah, and as you told me yourself, your own small runabout.
Very bad.
There's not many girls with assets of that description. Surely you could do better than someone who bolts every time you go 2 degrees above normal.
Well, I hadn't thought about it.
Oh, do think. Think carefully. There must be bigger fish than that in your own particular sea. You are, I mean, something of a catch. Ah, you could catch better fish than that. I'm prepared to take a bet on it, eh? Ooh, do you know, it's getting cold.
I'll take you in.
In that case, his advocacy failed. In time, he became reconciled to me as a husband for his daughter-in-law. Any work for me tomorrow in court, George?
Oh, come now, sir. We were in court last month. We mustn't be greedy.
No, I suppose not. Good night, George. Don't work too hard. My father was right, though. I hadn't bargained for the vim.
Made lots of money this week.
10 guineas for a divorce.
Oh, that's marvellous, darling.
Ah.
I had to get them new vests.
What in the hell do they do with their vests? You know, it's my opinion that they eat their vests.
And knicker linings. I put them on the account at John Barnes.
The account at John Barnes is assuming the proportions of the national debt.
You ought to be rich.
Ought?
I'm up all night typing your divorce petitions. They must be paying you. All those paragraphs of deep humiliation and distress.
No, you don't get paid for years in the law.
Can't you ask for it?
Of course you can't.
Why not?
Well, you can't just knock on someone's door and say, "Can I have 10 guineas for the divorce?"
I'll go and knock if you like.
Anyway, George collects the fees.
Who's George?
Our clerk. It's his department.
I thought his name was Henry.
It is. But my father calls him George.
Whatever for?
Because he once had a clerk called George who was killed on the Somme. So, when Henry took over, he continued to call him George.
Well, Henry doesn't much like that, if you ask me.
Oh, he doesn't mind.
You always think no one minds about your father.
Come on, let's go to the pub.
What on?
The family allowance.
All right. Shall we play bar billiards?
Ooh, like we were doing the night when Peter walked in, do you remember?
And said, "This is the end of our marriage. I see you have become entirely trivial."
Do you miss Peter?
No. Do you?
No. No, of course not.
I'm sorry.
What about?
John Barnes.
Well, that's marriage, isn't it?
What's marriage?
An unexpectedly large expenditure on vim, children's vests, and such like luxuries.
And who's that a quotation from?
We have been going, sir, to our personal drawer.
But, George, it's a cheque. For me.
We should have given it out to us, sir, in the fullness of time.
15 guineas, thank God for adultery.
We have never had a gentleman here in Chambers, sir, who had to grub for money in our personal top drawer.
But, George, we're desperately short of vim.
These things take time, sir.
And what's the point of keeping good money shut up with a box of old pen nibs? And a lion's individual fruit pie? I mean, what's it supposed to do in there? Breed or something? Don't look at me like that, George. If only you could find me some more work.
Well, we can't expect much. We have to wait until a few clients learn to like the cut of our jib.
But I have a talent for divorcing people.
It's not our work. It's our conversation with solicitors that counts while we're waiting to come on at London sessions.
Conversations?
Do we ask after their tomato plants? Do we remember ourselves to their motor mowers? Do we show a proper concern for their operations and their daughters' figure skating? Now, that's how we rise to heights in the law.
My father doesn't do that.
Your father is a case apart.
My father is obnoxious to solicitors.
The devil damn thee, black, thou cream-faced loon!
George!
He said that to Mr. Binns when he forgot to file his affidavit.
Oh,
oh yeah, your father is something of an exception.
Well, yes.
I do sometimes wonder, though, does he realise that I am one of the many Henrys of the world?
Yes, George. I'm sure he does.
Oh. Mr. Garfield goes down to the Free Legal Centre, Holloway Road. That's where he goes of a Thursday. Picks up the odd guinea or two on poor persons' cases, and I don't have him in here, sir, ferreting about among my packed meals, sir.
Mr. Garfield lives with his mother. He spends nothing at all on vim.
Well, he takes the view he might rise to fame from the Free Legal Centre.
What?
He says a murderer might rush in there off the street any day of the week.
Oh, right. So I went to the Free Legal Centre. A small room which smelt of old gym shoes and coconut matting, in which the distant sounds of billiards and punch-ups could be heard from the youth club, and I used to pray that a murderer, still clutching the dripping knife, might burst in from the Holloway Road, begging urgently for legal aid. Any murderers for me tonight, Miss Ferguson?
I'm just away to fetch you in my Mr. Morrow. I chose him up for you specially.
Why me?
He makes Mr. Garfield faint. Mr. Morrow!
You the lawyer?
Mr. Morrow? Is it matrimonial?
Yes, sir. In a sense.
Now, you were married on...
the 6th day of month 1. I prefer not to use the heathen notation.
1940?
1940.
I have to write it down on the form, you see. Now, what's the problem?
The corpuscles.
But there's no space on the free legal form for corpuscles.
Which is, however, the trouble. That's what I want, sir, the legal position. She's after the red ones now. I could just about stand it when she only took the white. And there's my child, sir, my Pamela. I've a very particular respect for that child, sir, who's now losing her hearty appetite.
What is your wife doing, exactly?
She is eating our red corpuscles.
Mr. Morrow, if you're not feeling very well...
She draws them from us by use of her spectacles, sir. That is how she draws them out. She focuses her rimless specs upon our bodies, and so our bodies bleed.
Mr. Morrow...
I was standing on my hearthrug, sir, which lies upon my hearth. I looked down, and I saw it there, the scarlet flower, the stain of blood, all over my white fleecy rug, sir.
Have you spoken to your wife about this at all?
I haven't spoken to her, sir, but she is forgiven. All the same, I do feel she has let me down. When it was only the white she focused her eyes on, it was more or less immaterial. But now she's after my vital strength.
But you see, legally, there isn't a great deal that I can do.
A man must stand and dance to his own blood, sir, surely.
Well, I know of no case decided on this particular issue.
So you're advising me to go to Doncaster?
You might as well.
It's your considered and expert opinion her disruptive eye won't be on me in Doncaster.
Why not give it a try, anyway?
Very well, sir. I will. I bow to your honest opinion. I shall discontinue all legal proceedings and proceed at once to Doncaster. Will you require my signature to that effect?
Well, no, I hardly think so.
That's just as well as it so happens. I never sign. Ethical reasons.
Mr. Morrow looks contented.
He should. He has absolutely no need of the law.
Let's talk of graves, of worms and epitaphs.
Back in chambers, my father, smelling of eau de cologne and occasional cigars, sat among his relics. The blown duck egg, on which a client's will had once been written. The caricatures of himself in famous cases. He wrote a great textbook on the law of wills, becoming expert in the habits of mad old ladies who fished for gold for their beds and left all their money to undesirable causes.
Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet not so. For what can we bequeath save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all are Bolingbrooks, and nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth which serves as paste and cover to our bones. Oh, you're back from lunch?
Yes.
Yes, you took a long time.
Well, I went to see a man who might want to put on my play.
Possibly you'd work harder if you were a woman barrister.
Possibly.
Yeah, I've often said to George, why don't we have a woman in chambers? Women work so much harder than men. They can be imposed upon so much more easily. Hey, look how seriously girls' schools take lacrosse. Well, they treat the law like that. I could get a ridiculous amount of work out of a woman pupil.
What does George say?
He says there's not the toilet facilities. Oh, Carter Davidson, he had a woman pupil once. He occupied the basement here, in rooms easily visible from the garden where the masters of the bench stroll after dinner. Well, they were strolling there, so history relates, after a grand night with some royal personage, a king, queen, princess, something of the sort, and gazing down, what do you think they saw?
Well, what?
Carter Davidson and his woman pupil, naked as puppies, stretched out on the Persian rug. Well, of course, nothing was said at the time, but you know what?
What?
A few days later, Sir Carter Davidson was appointed Chief Justice to the Seaward Isles. They shipped him off 10,000 miles from the Inns of Court. He could never understand why. Well, I suppose that's one way of getting yourself a knighthood. Now, are you enjoying the law? Are you?
Not all that much.
Oh, plays are all very well. Photographs in the paper may be very fine and large, but you need something real. Hold hard on the law.
Are you sure the law's real?
What on earth do you mean?
Well, no one seems to need it, except lawyers.
Well, the law wasn't designed for imbeciles. Or for your friends, who combine the art of being called Bill with membership of the female sex. Now, the whole point of the law is that it's designed for the ordinary, everyday citizen, seated aboard the ordinary, everyday Holborn tramcar.
Well, I don't think they have tramcars in Holborn anymore.
No, that is hardly the point.
No tramcars and no ordinary common-sense citizens sitting on them. No, they're all busy thinking about the things that they're really worried about, like the shapes on the ceiling or the stains on the carpet. And, you know, they only pretend to be ordinary common-sense citizens when they need lawyers. It's a disguise they put on, like the blue suit, or the old Boy Scouts button, or the pathetic voices they use when they take the Bible oath. They are fooling us. That's what they're doing, because they think if they play our game, we'll let them off their debts, or we'll order their wives to permit them sexual intercourse, or we'll liberate them from old, pointless crimes that no one holds against them in the first place. No, all this legal language that we are so proud of. It might just as well we Chinese.
Come on. You can get a lot of innocent fun out of the law. How's your cross?
What?
Well, your cross-examination. In court, have you the makings of a cross-examiner?
I don't know.
Timing is of great importance in the art of cross-examination.
That's show business.
How do you mean?
It's an expression, used by actors.
Really? How very uninteresting. Now, I always count, in silence, of course, up to 43 before starting a cross-examination.
Whatever for?
Well, the witness imagines you're thinking up some utterly devastating question.
Are you?
No, of course not. I'm just counting up to 43. But it unnerves the gentleman in the box. And then start off with the knockout. Don't leave it to the end. Go in with all guns blazing. Ask him.
What?
Is there anything in your conduct, Mr. Noakes, of which, looking back on it, you now feel heartily ashamed?
Is that a good question?
It is an excellent question.
Why exactly?
Because if he answers yes, he's made a damaging admission. And if he answers no, he's a self-satisfied idiot, and he's lost the sympathy of the court.
Anything else?
Well, suppose you have a letter from him, in which he admits something discreditable, like, having apologized to his wife, for instance. Now, how are you going to put that to him?
Did you, or did you not?
Not bad.
Write a letter apologizing to your wife.
Yes, well, you are young, I suppose.
Well, isn't that right?
It's not exactly the art of cross-examination.
Well, how...
Well, come on, then. You be Noakes.
All right.
You behaved disgracefully to your wife, did you not?
No.
In fact, so disgracefully that you had to apologize to her.
Well, I don't remember.
Will you swear that you did not?
What?
Will you swear that you didn't apologize to your wife?
All right.
Just turn to the letter on page 23. Just read it out to us, would you?
I see. But what's the point of all this, actually?
The point, my dear boy, is to down your opponent, to obliterate whoever is against you. That is what the point of it is. And, of course, to have a bit of fun while you're about it.
My father got too old for the train journey to London. He retired, on a pension of nothing but credit, optimism, and the determination not to think of anything unpleasant. His money had all gone on cigars, and barrels of oysters, and eau de cologne for his handkerchief, and always first class on the railways, and great huge Japanese cherry trees which flowered for 2 weeks a year in a green-white shower he never saw. He left me all the subtle pleasures of the law.
Do you want to cross-examine this witness?
Most certainly, my lord.
Very well. Get on with it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7...
Are you intending to ask any questions?
Sorry, my lord?
If you have a question to ask, ask it. We can't all wait while you stand in silent prayer, you know.
Now, madam, is there anything in your conduct which, looking back, you now feel heartily ashamed?
Yes!
Ah! And what are you ashamed of?
Well, I once wrote up for an autograph with picture. You know the type of thing. I know, at my age. Well, anyway, I began off. Am heartily ashamed to write up, but...
Have you any relevant questions?
Now, madam, would you be so kind as to read this letter, which I am about to hand you?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Would you read it to us, madam?
I can't.
Madam, the court is waiting.
No, I really can't.
Is there something in that letter which you would rather not remember?
No, not exactly.
Then read it to us, madam.
Then could I borrow someone's glasses?
It was years before it got any better. But then the time came when I forgot my father's timing, and I began to enjoy a modest success.
Are the children settled?
Yes, they're all settled.
How's our little Jennifer?
Your little Jennifer's fine, and so are Daniel and Jonathan.
Oh, Jenny's so pretty, I'd like to have done a drawing of her. Or perhaps a pastel.
Why don't you?
Oh, I gave up drawing when I got married. You have to give up things when you get married, don't you?
Do you?
Well, of course, there's no time now.
Doesn't he leave you half an hour to yourself?
Well, he doesn't like to be left. I suppose I often think some day I shall be alone, shan't I? You can't help thinking these things.
What'll you do? Travel. Go to France.
Well, I shan't dig the garden, for one thing.
I thought he'd be here by now. Come to join the family for the weekend.
It seems he's getting a lot of briefs now.
Yes.
Oh, it's hard to believe. It must be keeping you very busy.
Me? Why me?
Or don't you help him with his cases?
Oh, he's got a secretary now. He hardly ever discusses his work. He thinks I take it too seriously.
Of course, his father, Mrs. going up to London, he got such a lot of fun out of the divorces.
What's that?
I said you missed going to London, dear.
Well, it's my son, you know. He's pinched all my work. Are we still waiting for him?
Yes, dear, still waiting.
Hello!
Oh, what happened, darling?
I won! Clarkson v. Clarkson after 5 days.
Oh, refreshers!
They insisted on fighting every inch of the way, terribly litigious.
The sort to breed from, those Clarksons.
I bought champagne.
Oh, how festive.
For a small celebration.
Just like a wedding.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Isn't it festive, dear?
Yes, it is festive indeed. Right then, here's to the boy.
The boy!
Well, I'm glad you can afford such things, dear boy. I suppose that's because you're polite to solicitors.
Well, occasionally.
You see, I could never bring myself to... well, it's a pity, really, you see, because if only I'd gone out to dinner with solicitors, I might have had something to leave you, apart from my overdraft. Yes, I remember after one case, my solicitor said, now, we were standing on the platform at Temple Station. He said, "Are you going west, dear boy? We might have dinner together." No, I lied. I was so anxious to get away. I'm going east. I ended up with a sandwich in Bethnal Green. You see, it's my own fault. It's this determination to be alone. You know what would go very nicely with this champagne?
What, dear? A dry biscuit?
No. The crossword! Come on, give us a clue.
Oh, one across. The NCO sounds agony.
NCO sounds agony. How many letters?
2 words, 8 and 10.
2 words. NCO sounds agony. Corporal punishment.
Oh, that's very clever.
I have this crossword fellow at my mercy.
And you're very clever too, darling.
Oh, thank you.
The only thing is...
What?
I thought, in that Clarkson v. Clarkson, weren't you for the husband?
Of course I was for the husband.
Wasn't he the man who insisted on his wife tickling the soles of his feet for hours at a stretch?
Yes, but it was only while they're watching television.
With a contraption, a foot tickler.
Oh, it's most ingenious, actually. The whole thing was worked out with a system of weights and pulleys. The actual act was performed by an old pipe cleaner.
Ought you to have won?
I won.
But ought you?
The judge said it was part of the wear and tear of married life.
Yes, but how did they feel about it? I suppose they're still married, aren't they?
Yes, it did look a little confused.
Perhaps they didn't appreciate the rules of the game.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
You enjoy playing games?
Well, I suppose so.
You know what?
What?
You get more like him every day.
In his old age, my father's chief sport was starting arguments.
Music. I can't imagine anyone actually liking music. The immortality of the soul, what a boring concept. I can think of nothing worse than living to eternity in some great transcendental hotel with nothing to do in the evenings. It's like that place in Glastonbury. Oh, what's the time?
Nearly 9:30.
Oh, time's nipping along nicely. Nothing narrows the mind so much as foreign travel. Stay at home, that's the way to see the world.
I don't know that's true.
Of course it's true. Yeah, I'll tell you something else, Elizabeth. Just between the two of us, there's a lot of sorry stuff in D.H. Lawrence.
I don't know about that either.
Of course there is, and a lot of damn dull stuff in old Proust. Do you hear that, Elizabeth? Lot of damn dull stuff in old Proust.
Yes, I heard.
Well, I'll say this for you. You're an improvement on the ones he used to bring home. Girls who'd closet themselves in the bathroom for hours on end. Nothing to show for it. None of them lasted long.
I wonder why.
Yes, I wonder. See, at least my son, he's someone to talk to. Most people get such damn dull children. Is the boy here?
Yes.
That play of yours came across quite well, they tell me.
Yes.
Would you like a hot drink?
I see that other fellow's play got very good reviews. You wonder what? He doesn't put your nose out of joint, eh? Oh, do you know, I've not been sleeping well lately. And when I can't sleep, do you know, I sometimes like to make a list of all those things I really hate.
Are you sure no one would like a hot drink?
Is it a long list?
No, not very. Runny eggs, cold plates, waiting for things. Parsons.
Parsons?
Yes, Parsons on the wireless. If those fellows bore God as much as they bore me, I'm sorry for him.
My father's a parson.
Yes, I know. Nymph, in thy orisons be all my sins remembered. Hey! There's a wasp. There's a wasp.
Yes, dear.
No, quick, get it away. Get it away. What's it doing?
It's going away.
Oh. When you've been troubled by a wasp, don't you love a fly? Don't the evenings seem terribly long, now you're married? I mean, aren't you finding it all tremendously tedious? What do? Have the wireless?
We don't get bored, exactly.
We can always quarrel.
I was surprised by that play of yours.
Were you?
Yes, when you told us the story of that play, I said, oh, this is a bit thin. This is rather poor fooling. Didn't I say that?
Yes, dear.
This is likely to come very tardy off, but now it appears to have come across quite well. Didn't that surprise you, Elizabeth?
Well...
She doesn't like it.
Is she what?
Elizabeth doesn't like it very much.
Really? How interesting. Now tell me why.
Not serious.
Well, you don't think so? You think he's not serious?
He plays games. He makes jokes. When the time comes to say anything serious, it's as if...
No. Go on.
It's as if there's something stopping him all the time.
Is that so? Now I wonder why that should be.
Well, I should think you'd know.
Why?
Because you've never really said anything serious to him. Have you? No one here says anything. They tell stories and they make jokes and something's happening.
Elizabeth, it doesn't always have to be said.
Sometimes it does.
All right. What do you want to hear me say? What words of wisdom? She was as beautiful as a butterfly, and as proud as a queen, was pretty little Polly Perkins of Paddington Green.
He had no message. I think he had no belief. He was the advocate who could take the side that came to him first and always find words to anger his opponent. And when the children came to see him, he told them no more and no less than he told me.
Grandpa! Tell us the one about the king.
Oh, which king?
Macbeth!
Oh, Macbeth. Dunsinane. What a terrible place to spend the weekend. Drafts, no hot water, no wireless, and the alarm bell going off in the middle of the night when you least expect it. And finally, the dinner party.
Go on, tell us! Tell us!
Oh, a most embarrassing affair, dinner with the Macbeths. And everybody sitting down, quite comfortably, and his wife says, "Come and sit down, dear. The soup's getting cold." And he turns to his chair, and he sees something horrible. Banquo. The time has been that when the brains were out, the man would die and there an end. But now they rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from our stools.
I used to scream when he did that to me. His mind was full of the books he'd read as a boy. Lying in hot fields in his prickly Norfolk jacket, he told them about foggy afternoons in Baker Street, and sabres at dawn at Spandau Castle, and Umpslopagus, and Alan Quatermain, and She Who Must Be Obeyed. He spoke to them about the absurdities of his life.
My old father was a great one for doing unwelcome acts of kindness. Recall his rash conduct in the affair of my Uncle George's dog.
It's the dog. Go on about the dog.
Well, my poor Uncle George fell upon evil days and had to sell his faithful pointer. My father, thinking that Uncle George was heartbroken, went furtively about to buy the animal back. It was a most lugubrious hound. It seldom or never smiled. It was not so much dangerous as...
Depressing.
Depressing, indeed. And when he saw it again, my Uncle George took himself off to Uxbridge, where he got himself a post with good prospects, but digs, where unfortunately animals were not allowed. He shed no tears at this second parting from his dumb friend, who then took up residence with us, a most unwelcome guest.
Come on, it's time to go home.
Oh no, Mum, it's the one about the dog.
Oh, the dog.
Well, we offered the dog to anyone who would provide a good home for it. Then we said we'd be content with a thoroughly bad home for the dog, until finally we had to pay someone a huge amount of money to have the animal taken away. But then my mother and I used to remember terrible stories about faithful hounds that were able to find their way home over immense distances.
Come on, we must go home now, really.
Goodbye, Grandpa.
Goodbye, God bless you.
Goodbye, Grandpa.
Goodbye, you take care.
The enormous garden grew dark and overgrown in spreading patches. My father, from his wheelchair, continued daily to chronicle its progress in a diary he dictated to my mother.
June 25th. We put sodium chlorate on the front path. We had a raspberry pie from our own raspberries. The dahlias are coming into flower. The jays are eating all the peas.
Willow herb and thistles and bright poppies grew up. The fruit cage collapsed like a shaken temple, and wood supported the tumbled netting. The honeysuckle and yew hedges grew high as a jungle, tall and dark and uncontrolled, lit with unexpected flowers.
Thomas came, and we saw him standing still among the roses.
A boy was hired to engage the garden in single combat. His name was not Thomas.
July 15th. we planted 100 white begonias and staked up the Malva Alcoa. A dragonfly came into the sitting room. Thomas was paid. I'm laid up. The pest officer arrived to eliminate the wasp's nest. Unhappily, we couldn't watch the destruction.
In the summer, with the garden at its most turbulent, my father became, quite suddenly, very old and ill.
"What are you going to take for breakfast, Mr. Phelps?" said Holmes. "Curried fowl or eggs? Or will you help yourself?" "Thank you, I can eat nothing," said Phelps. "Oh, come, try the dish before you." "Thank you, I would really rather not." "Well then," said Holmes with a mischievous twinkle, "I suppose you have no objection to helping me." Phelps raised the cover, and as he did so uttered a scream and sat there staring with a face as white as the plate upon which he looked. Across the centre of it was lying a little cylinder of blue-grey paper.
The naval treaty.
Yes.
I'm afraid you'll find that story a great bore.
Of course not. It was very exciting.
Dear Elizabeth, I'm so relieved that you can lie as mercifully as the rest. I want a bath. Someone take me to the bathroom. Cretins!
Sit down. Come on, sit down. Now, don't be angry.
I'm always angry when I'm dying.
It was a hot, endless night, in a small house surrounded by a great garden in which all the plants were on the point of mutiny. Dr. Ellis, how is he?
Wake up. Wake up. Don't let him sleep, that's the main thing. Come on now. Come along. Wakey, wakey. Ah, yes, that's better.
But do you think that...
The only thing to do is to keep his eyes open. There's really nothing else. I'll come back in the morning.
Wake up. Wake up. Please. Please, wake up. I'd been told all the things that you're meant to feel. Sudden freedom. Growing up. The end of dependence. The step into the sunlight when no one is taller than you, and you're in no one else's shadow. Well, I know what I felt. Lonely.